Hello and welcome everyone. It's great to be back with you for the 21st episode of our Lunch and Learn series and the final episode of 2021. Woo. We are here today with Elizabeth Frantz of Surf to Snow and Betsy Kruk. I got that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good. That's a great name. Of Paleo Solutions. It's almost as good as Hazard, Betsy. Almost.
Almost.
We could have our own firm, Hazard and Kruk. Paleo Solutions, which was recently acquired by Stantec, and they're going to share their technology lessons learned from this past year. I'll introduce them in a minute. We hope that you ask questions, receive value, and walk away with real solutions to real problems. That's why we're doing these. At the end of the webinar, Nancy Douglas will give us a quick demo of how WildNote supports environmental consultants on linear construction projects. Thought that was pretty good timing with the infrastructure bill passing. I'm the host, Kristen Hazard, founder and CEO of Wildnote. Wildnote is an environmental compliance automation platform built specifically for environmental consultants, permittees, and regulators. My co-host today is Jeff Aramaspe.
Hello.
Our chief
Glad to be here.
Yep, our chief revenue officer and the guy who actually brought Start Stop Keep to our company. If you'd like to learn more about WildNote, please contact Jeff through the chat or by email at jeff@wildnoteapp.com. Quick housekeeping, please use the chat window to interact and post questions for the panel. Please use the Q&A window for technical questions or if you need help during the webinar. And if you have not completed the poll yet, please take a moment to fill it out. There we go. Okay, now I get to introduce our amazing guests. They're from two of our most innovative customers that we work with. I'll start with Betsy Kruk. She has a Bachelor of Science in Geology, emphasis on paleontology from Montana State University in Bozeman, Montana. I got that. And a Master's of Science in Systematics and Evolution from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Betsy championed the use of Wildnote Paleo Solutions, now Stantec, after being frustrated with the previous method of data collection. She very quickly learned to create forms and tailor them to fit the needs of the field staff. We do lovingly refer to her as a wild nerd. Elizabeth Frantz is founder, chief operating officer, and chief safety officer of Surf to Snow Environmental Resource Management. She has 25 years of experience managing complex projects, large teams of field and office staff and contractors, and negotiating with agency representatives in support of client interests. Her bio says she uses the most efficient and cost-effective methods to maintain compliance, which we're sure is why she implemented WildNote just about a year ago. Welcome, you two.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is great. So we like to start out, we sort of have an episodic thing going here in our segment is called Stories from the Field. And we thought Elizabeth could talk about a story from the office more like in terms of how you've conducted strategic planning, or if you have some story to share around your planning process.
Sure. So, whenever we get a project coming in, one of our main goals is to do what we need to do and then look at what the technology is that we're using or what equipment are we using and make sure that we're being as efficient and as nimble as possible. We're always interested in figuring out things that we can change. Recently, we had a project where we had to collect a tremendous amount of data and we had to start it really, really quickly. And I had remembered working with you guys long time ago, back when it was Fox. And I was thinking, and I had always wanted to try and get WildNote started up for our company. So it worked out really well, and it was really easy to get it started. And I think I worked with Nancy and was able to pick up how to change the forms and set them up. And really, after going through maybe 6 or 7 iterations through collecting data at the same time, we were able to get the form to a really great place. And our staff were able to really collect the data very, very quickly from day one. I mean, I literally set it up, I think, the weekend prior to them going out the next Monday.
Yeah.
So it was super fast and efficient. And I know the employees were really happy about it. And I know the client was really happy about it. And it was just a really big expansion on something that we hadn't been doing for our projects, which now is a big part of our projects when we're looking at them.
Nancy, what percentage of projects do you see like, we got to do this tomorrow or Monday, you know, like, don't you think it's a pretty high percentage that come our way?
Yeah, we often help people get started quickly.
Yeah, it feels like they just often come up fast, Elizabeth? Like what's the deal with that?
Sometimes they do, and a lot of it focuses on emergencies. So we live in California where wildfires and atmospheric rivers and all these other crazy things happen here. And we need to be able to go out and support the utilities and collect data really, really fast. And so having something like Wildnote where we can easily set up a form and change it to meet whatever need we have for whatever the project is, whether it's stormwater or bio or cultural or anything, it's just amazing to be able to have that asset that we can use.
Yeah. I've noticed with potential customers, it might be off season and they're like, well, let's talk to you when the season comes around. And then the season comes around, it's like, too busy to deal with this right now, right? Yeah. So we actually are really advocating that in the off season, folks get signed up and ready so that when they do have these quick projects coming up, they can be set up for success. So, all right, thanks for that story. Jeff, you want to get us started on the start, stop, keep stuff?
Yeah, sure thing. So as we alluded to in the promotion for this webinar, we do an exercise all the time here at WildNote. We call start, stop, keep. So at the start of every planning interval, be it a quarter or be it a year, we look at what are the things we want to start doing, what are the things we want to stop doing, and what are the things we want to keep doing in order to help the business run more effectively. And so we're talking about this now with respect, obviously, technology planning, because we think, as Kristen just said, people tend to wait until they absolutely need it, and then it's kind of too late. So now that we're in an off season a little bit, maybe we can do a little bit of that technology planning. So, we want to go ahead and run this exercise and kind of get your feedback on, what worked for you in 2021, what didn't work for you, and how does that inform what you want to do in 2022. Now, if we do start, stop, keep, it kind of gives us the answer first, right? So we're going to flip that around a little bit today, and we're going to do keep, stop, start. So I'd like to direct the question first to Betsy, which is, with respect to technology, based on what you did here in 2021, what is, one of the things that you want to keep doing in 2022?
So definitely one of the things we want to keep doing is since basically starting right around in May or June, we switched from using a different program to WildNote. So we definitely want to keep using WildNote, of course, since it's been really helpful. And it's also just been, one of the other things we want to keep doing is keep asking our field staff for their feedback, what needs to be done. It's very helpful that we now have a platform that can be very easily edited. So it's keep going back to the field staff being like, hey, is this working? Is there something else you need? Keep going back to them for what they need to help make their lives easier, because that was definitely one of the biggest goals we had, was making our field staff's lives a lot easier.
So based on that, what were the specific problems you were trying to solve for your field staff?
It was anything from cutting down on the time that it would take for them to complete the forms. A lot of our field staff had to be completing it either back at home or back at the hotel, where now they can actually complete it in the field. It was a lot of redundancies that we were able to eliminate. Simple things as even spelling errors that are easily corrected where they weren't before. And so, yeah, basically just been able to move things forward and make things as easy and as streamless and as less painful as possible.
Yeah. So overall, your goal is, you want to keep making sure that you're making things easier for your field staff. That's kind of the overarching objective there, right? Great. How about you, Elizabeth? What's one of the things you want to keep doing here? And you can't say WildNote, by the way. What's one of the things you want to keep doing? Okay, good.
Okay. So for us, it's similar. I mean, we want to continue to find efficiencies with our field data collection and the tools and equipment we use. I mean, we actually, for some of our clients, we were still using paper forms for things, and we've invested in iPads in 2021. And so we've really got all of our field staff using iPads and making sure that all of the technology that we're using or the apps are really compatible with the iPads. And so that's a big push for us. We want to continue to also look at cloud-based systems. That's another thing that's huge. We do have an on-site server, and we've kind of gone back and forth whether we should switch to a cloud-based service or keep it as an in-house server. So that's something that we're really trying to figure out. So it's just things are really changing in our industry and also through time, just because of how we're working right now, where people aren't necessarily in the office all the time, and we're going to be hybrid, we're going to be remote. It's a whole mix of things. I don't think we'll ever go back to, and maybe this is the stopping part I'm kind of leading into, but we won't ever go back to having absolutely everybody at the office. We're going to be some sort of combination. So we need to find those efficiencies that work with that new platform. And then cybersecurity is a big one that we're really pushing into, and started in 2021 pretty heavily. And we're making sure that everything that we're doing meets those cybersecurity initiatives.
I'd like to, this point that you made, Elizabeth, in your stories from the office or field, and then what Betsy made was the iterative nature of designing a survey form for effectiveness and getting feedback from the field. And that is so important to know that you'll have the most success if you do that, if you give yourself that time and you listen to the field folks. And yes, you can make edits and changes in the platform. So that's wonderful. You have complete control over that iterative nature. So really important.
All right, so let's jump ahead a little bit. We talked about some of the things you want to keep, but let's talk about what didn't work maybe a little bit for you in 2021. So, what was something you did in 2021 that you think you might want to stop, Betsy?
One of the things that we definitely learned in kind of trying to create the most optimum form was we actually thought it would be easier to have everything in one form so that there was less bouncing around that our staff had to do. But between a combination of working with our field staff and also working closely with Nancy, we realized that it's better for everybody, actually, the more that we split things up, because that way you're losing less data and the uploads go a lot faster. And so it's kind of finding that balance between keeping things, simple and easy, but at the same time, making sure that our data is protected and might not, accidentally be deleted through an error or through slow upload speeds. So it's a kind of a combination of both a stop and a start, sort of stopping, putting everything in one, basically in a way, putting all of our eggs in one basket and then have potential data loss. And then moving on towards, okay, what's a good combination? What's a way to, make things easier on both ends of the spectrum?
So no mega forms, I think is what you're saying.
No, while the monitors did like it, there ended up being quite a bit of occasional data loss just in upload speeds and whether it was poor internet connection at a hotel or somewhere else. So it's finding that very kind of happy balance between the two.
Got it. So
yeah, and you add photos to that mega form, and then you're looking at pretty massive
things.
Data.
Sure.
Yep, exactly.
For sure. How about you, Elizabeth? What's your one of the things that you'd like to basically cut back on or not do anymore in 2022 or 2022?
So looking at everything, not just the field work that we're doing, but looking at our operations people and things like that and how they're handling data. We still have a couple things where we're doing manual data entry into multiple spreadsheets, and we really want to stop doing that. And so we're looking into an initiative specifically for moving into 2022 to find a system or use systems that we already have to make it easier. So we enter data once. So we're not having to enter it multiple times. It's entered once, but we're able to use it or export it into different platforms.
Yep. Sort of a write once, read many sort of approach, right? Yeah, absolutely. Really good approach. And I think that's a good perspective to take. I did want to ask you a little bit earlier. You mentioned that you still have some in-house servers. You haven't moved completely to the cloud yet for everything. So what are the applications you're still running in-house?
So pretty much all of our data that we collect is saved to our in-house server. So all of our project files, everything that our operations team does, all of our contracts, invoices, everything ends up on our server and backed up on the server.
Mhm.
So it would be a pretty big change for us to move to a cloud-based system. And it is a little bit more expensive right now. We haven't really hit that cusp of being a big enough company to switch to all cloud-based for everything. But I think we're right on the cusp.
It's funny you say that, because there was a time, once upon a time, early in the cloud evolution, the big companies kept all their data in-house. They weren't ready to go to the cloud, right? So, as well as the small companies, the SMBs that went to the cloud first and really built that out. And now it's kind of what you're saying, it's sort of the opposite. You're not quite big enough to take advantage of all the stuff that's available in the cloud, and just sort of kind of demonstrates how much the cloud has become very much mainstream in that regard. So.
Do you run a SharePoint document or any kind of document management system, or you just save the files in like the network, the folder on your server? Like, how's that work, Elizabeth?
So we use Office 365 and Teams pretty heavily. And so that's sort of like our SharePoint. But we also do have an outside FTP site that we use with clients as well for really big files that we want to send to them.
Yeah.
And it's something that met our cybersecurity initiative. And they are also able to access it. It's not blocked by some facilities that we work with.
Yeah.
Right.
Got it.
How about you, Betsy, at Paleo?
We have used, it's been Google Drive. I think we're as we're going through our transition with Stantec, it's switching to, I think, their own in-house one, but we had used Google Drive. But also to kind of back to something Elizabeth had said, is that we were using, an iPad to fill out our data form, but then using a separate camera to take our pictures. And then we're uploading our forms, to the cloud of that data collection, but then the pictures up to Google Drive. So we definitely had things sort of like all over the place. But with again, kind of going with Wildnote, it's our pictures and our forms are all together. So it definitely helps kind of be able to bring everything together instead of like looking at the PDF form and then trying to find the picture for a report. So it definitely helps make it a lot easier.
All the agency forms we work on, they still have this like photo log table, and it's like the file, the actual printed, what's that called? The film is located here or something. It's like things are changing so fast.
For sure. All right, let's get to what the things that we want to start doing in 2022. So we've talked about, what do we want to keep, and what we got back is that we wanted to definitely focus on sort of the iterative process of building survey forms. We want to make sure we keep our field people out there and in front of us. You both want to keep using Wildnote, which we're grateful to hear. That's fantastic for us. We've talked a little about things that we want to stop doing. No mega forms. Ultimately, Elizabeth, you'd like to get more cloud-based, but that might be some transition. So what are some of the things that we want to go ahead and start here in 2022?
I can go ahead and start that. So we also want to incorporate the ability to tie our accounting to data collection, including time and expenses, so that everything is tied to one order number or one purchase order number. Again, it's kind of that one-stop shop thinking, or, if you like looking in a magazine, you see a QR code and you can scan it and you get all the information you want. We want to get to a place where we have that with our projects, that we can look up this order number in whatever the system is, and we know everything about it.
Nice. So the ability to go ahead.
Dream big.
Yeah.
So pull it all together, all the things that you want, from a specific project. You can say, go to this project, and there's everything. The data, the billing, the sort of the project history is all the things associated with that. Yep. Nice. Betsy, how about you?
Still kind of a continuation of things. Maybe not quite anything quite so drastic, but definitely, continue to find ways to, either like push Wildnote, find ways to help it, make our reporting easier, figure out to continue making our field staff's lives easier, find ways to also either search for like a specific photo that we also end up looking for a lot. So it's really just kind of trying to find ways to make things happen a lot faster and kind of make our lives easier, especially on the back end. when it comes to writing reports, it's not always so quite cut and dry. And so finding ways for us to be able to pull everything we have together in a way that makes, basically helps make budgets a lot smaller, because there's less work that we have to do on our end.
Yep.
So it's definitely kind of continuing to push the platform forward and, you know, see what other kind of crazy things we can do for it to make our lives easier as well.
So I think kind of, you know, if I could rephrase sort of what you said there, you know, as we look for efficiencies in our environmental consulting projects, you know, the field stuff is, I mean, there's efficiencies to be gained there, but the bottom line is that people still have to get into a car and go spend 8 or 10 hours out on site and, you know, doing all the things they do. But there's tons of efficiencies that can happen back in the office on the reporting side of thing. And that's where you really want to go focus for 2022.
Exactly.
So I'm just kind of curious, and Kristen alluded to it earlier, you know, we've been saying, hey, we're going to get this great infrastructure bill. There's going to be a ton of business out there and, you know, everything's going to be great. You know, what are you seeing and what are you guys thinking about with respect to how that infrastructure bill is going to impact, you know, sort of the business and the projects coming your way? I mean, is it something you're like, hey, yay, more business, I can gain market share and make my business more profitable? Or is it, oh my God, look at all this additional work we're going to have to go do? Kind of, where do you fall on the spectrum there?
I think it's exciting. I think that it opens up lots of opportunities. And I think if you have that willingness to go look for it and be open to different things, I think it could be really, really great for a business.
Yeah, great. Betsy, how about you guys? What are you thinking about it?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely
The same.
obviously.
Yeah, definitely the same. It means, you know, more business, better ways that we can refine our processes and the technology that we use, and just more ways to get the business out there, get people to be recognized and well known, and basically be able to show our abilities of our data management, and then also in a lot of ways how good our science can also be as well.
Yeah, great. That's good. Excellent. So Betsy, I did have a question. You had, you guys recently changed technology platforms. You went from another provider and you moved to Wildnote. You know, what sort of problems were you trying to solve with that? And then sort of organizationally, you know, what was it like to make that change? You know, did you get pushback? Was there resistance? You know, sort of how did it come about there at Paleo in general?
Yeah, so we'd actually kind of been, you know, frustrated with this data management form company that we've been working with before. It was very kind of either slow to get responses, even slow to get customer service. Once a form was made, there was really almost no changing it. So I joke about things like spelling mistakes, but, you know, I'd have to keep looking at where course in terms of, you know, grain size, instead of CARSE, it was CAU, like course as in a class versus a thickness. And I'd have to keep staring at that, and that couldn't be fixed. So that was definitely a big frustration. And a lot of our field staff were not happy because the app was kind of clunky. Things didn't work super well. It was very funny, or if anytime we had problems, it was sort of tried to be solved in-house before actually hearing anything from the company itself. So everybody was extremely eager to move away from it. Switching wasn't quite as scary as I thought it might be. It was basically, I'd sat in with a couple within a meeting of like, here's this platform we're looking at, and it's like, you can build your own forms. I was like, cool, give me access. Let me find out what I can do with it. Again, the joke I keep bringing up is I'm a gamer, so give it something to me, I'm going to break it or figure out how to use it to my advantage. And so it took about a day, had to learn the WildNotes, basically your guys' terminology. And then from there was able to take the best parts of our previous forms and put them in and create something incredibly better. And the early testing that everybody had, were like, everybody was pretty happy, excited, saw a lot of the potential. But then it was great for somebody to be like, hey, we need this versus that, or there's this issue, and then just being able to go in and change it. Right. It was things that we all kind of were joking that we were a little bit jaded. It was like, look, we can do these things, we can change them. Like, it's easy. Oh, look, there's a small mistake, easy, no problem, we fix it.
Nice.
And
Betsy,
so,
are you the only one who makes edits to survey forms? Do you control that within your company? Or
I've been the one spearheading it, yeah, but I've definitely showed other people, and I'm teaching others how to create forms themselves. I created a lot of the main ones. one of my coworkers actually basically built his own version of a DPR form for cultural out of WildNote as well. So I've been kind of spearheading it, but there's been a lot of help as well, creating forms.
It's real. We see the most successful customers have a person that may not do all the forms, but sort of leads that effort within the company. Don't you think, Nancy? That it's something to consider in your planning for technology if you're going digital, to have that person that can own that, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. Definitely. Excellent. That's really good. And Elizabeth, you in the past, when our previous discussions had talked a little bit about how technology has helped you talking about how you're going to use the technology in a project has made you a little bit more competitive on some bids and proposals, perhaps. Can you kind of describe your thinking around that and what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, clients are always going to want to look at a proposal, and if they see something that makes you stand out, makes it so that, you know, you have an innovative idea, you have something that's going to save them money, you have something that's going to make the data really available to them very easily, they're always going to be really interested in that. At least that's what we found. And so for us, when we're looking at these proposals that we get, we're constantly trying to figure out what can we do here? What can be innovative? What's something that's going to stand out from the crowd? Because that's really what you want to do. And in one case for us, it was Wildnote, and having the ability to use it for our data collection, and the client just really liked it and liked the ability to see the data and how the reports came out and all of it.
That's great. Good. Well, we're glad we could be a part of that solution. That's terrific. So kind of one last question before we get into our wrap-ups here, but how do you see your priorities changing really between 2021 and 2022? I mean, big year of technology usage, you adopted obviously a new platform in Wildnote. Sort of what's changed your perspective, or how has your perspective changed popping into 2022? And we'll start with Elizabeth here.
So for us, it's kind of what I mentioned before. I mean, we've been going through this pandemic, and 2020 was kind of a crazy year, and a lot of people were working from home, and things were kind of crazy. We didn't know what was going to happen. And then in 2021, things really started to get better, and people are able to come back to the office. The people that are close enough or that are vaccinated, because we are a company that's we have federal contracts, so we have to be vaccinated to continue working on those contracts. And so for us, it's going to continue to look at how we will be affected by having either a hybrid environment or full remote for some employees, because there are certain employees that probably will never come back to the office, and that's okay. And so it's working on changing our perspective at how we look at that and how we work with it, and how we work with those employees and keep them engaged. And even the hybrid employees that sometimes come to the office and then sometimes are remote. So it's looking at all of those things and just trying to make everything better in that regard.
That makes sense. Got it. That's really good. Great. Betsy, how about you?
Yeah, so it's definitely as well as making things and making the technology a lot more accessible. Because for a while, when we were a lot smaller, we were able to hand out, iPads to everybody. But now that we're expanding and we have field staff of different levels, we can't necessarily hand out the same technology to everybody. But again, one of the great things about Wildnote is that it doesn't matter if you're on, Apple operating system, Android, iPad, iPhone, Android tablet or phone, anybody can use it. And so it makes it easier, being like, hey, you already have this existing device. It's already accessible to you. You can use what you have instead of needing any, additional equipment. And so it's continuing to use technology and have it be accessible to everybody and all of our field staff, or anybody that ends up working with us, that they don't need anything extra.
Great. That's good. Excellent. So you've learned a lot in 2021, lots of big plans for 2022. And we really appreciate you sharing everything that you've done. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, and we're getting near the end here to sort of wrap things up.
I just wanted to end the poll now. And we did have 4 questions. So what is the role in your company? And we have a tie of field professionals and project or program managers. So those are the bulk 68% total. And then have you started your 2020 planning? And 75% of you have, 25% still to do. Does your 2022, have you started your 2022 planning? Does your 2022 planning include technology planning? And 81% say yes. So I think that is a sign of the times. I bet that would have been less percentage even last year and the year before. And are you planning to deploy any of the following technologies? And we have field data collection at 75%, GIS mapping solutions at 78% as the winners there. We've got 31% on the drone-based technology. So that's interesting to keep an eye on. So there is the poll. And I just want to thank Elizabeth and Betsy for generously sharing your time and expertise with all of us today. I know that we hear a lot of feedback. It's really wonderful for us to come together as a community of environmental consultants and learn from each other. So it's really generous of you to do that. Thank you so much. And
Welcome. Thank you.
yeah, and then
Thanks for the invite.
all right. And Nancy will do a demo now. Yeah, Nancy?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen then.
Okay. Jeff, you want to intro the demo?
Sure. So we thought that given that with the passage of the infrastructure bill, that there are going to be a boatload of linear construction projects that come out of that, be that highways or power transmission lines or gas pipelines or everything else associated with things that get built in a straight line. And it just so happens that from a construction compliance perspective, that Wildnote is really very well set for linear construction projects. And so with that, we thought we would have Nancy demonstrate that. So I think I teed that up, Nance. Off to you.
Yeah, you did. Perfect. So hello, everybody. I'm in charge of customer success here at Wildnote. And I also want to echo the thanks to our panelists today. These 2 women are very sharp. It's been a pleasure to work with them and get their projects off the ground with a new tool. So this is going to be a real quick overview of our platform, just so you can get an idea of what it looks like and how it gets used, with the focus, as Jeff said, on linear construction projects or construction compliance in general. And we do have a lot of companies who use our tool just for that. So Wildnote is a combination of a cloud-based web platform, which is what you're seeing on your screen right now, plus a corresponding app that works on iOS and Android devices, as alluded to by Betsy when she was talking about how it can, be used on all kinds of different things. So tablets, iPads, iPhones, and Android devices. And the concept is that Wildnote's really built out as a project-based tool, recognizing the way that environmental consultants work. And so everything is through a project context where you start your projects and set up your projects on the web. And then you deploy whatever forms that you need, survey forms that you need in the field to be filled out by field staff. That gets synced back. That works offline, and that data gets synced back to the web, where you do your data QA, QC, and exporting. So what you're looking at here is our projects page. So I'm in our sales sandbox right now. Here are the project names going down here on the left. Some project data in general about how many people are working on this and how many surveys have been submitted, how many exports have been created, etc. And then there's a go-to menu here, and the platform itself, and I would love it if Betsy and Elizabeth, if you're still on, if you guys want to chime in, but the platform's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of layers. So it's a little bit of what you see is what you get. So you've got a project admin side, which again is that setup of the project. Within that context, we've got features that are really geared towards the kind of work that you folks do for construction compliance. In fact, I have a little cheat sheet here. For construction compliance, we have things like an issue tracker, for example. So under project data, if we go to the dashboard, you can, I don't think this actually, let me go to one that actually does have some issues tracked in it. We'll go to this construction compliance. I think we've got issues in here. So essentially, when you're building up a form in Wildnote, you can flag the answers to questions to show up in this issue tracker. So that helps you track things that need to be brought to the contractor's attention, things that need to be fixed, and sort of track the life cycle of whatever those issues are. So you can see here, these are the various forms, and then flag answers over here that are showing what needs follow up. And the nice thing in the platform is that you can just click right here on the survey ID, and that'll take you right to the form with the further details in it. So that's a nice feature. Other things that are handy in the world of construction, linear construction compliance, in general, this is a single source of truth, and it's a searchable database. So we had one instance where we had a customer who, they were working on the border project, and there was a significant spill that had occurred with some nasty stuff. And 6 months or so after that happened, they needed to do some kind of follow-up reporting on that. And he really was so happy to be able to come in to the project that they were in, go into search, and search specifically to find that specific instance and be able to retrieve that data very easily. So that idea of having this type of database with a single source of truth is really handy with these kinds of projects. In addition to that, we recognize that often the monitors need to understand the measures themselves that they're tracking. And, you know, in the old days, I don't know, I've helped people set up these checklists that have literally, I don't know, I think our max maybe it was 350 questions on a project of all the different things that were being monitored. And it's pretty overwhelming, and certainly people can't remember the letter of the law. And typically I think they'd have maybe in their binder or their backpack, you know, what the actual measures were, but built into the system is the ability to actually put that text contextually right into the form. And it just shows up as a little helper eye, and the users can touch that if they need to get more information about a particular measure and really understand what it is that they're trying to track for. So that's another thing that's very useful. In addition to that, I think the real value of the platform comes with photo management. So if we come in, I think in this gallery, we've got some photos. So we have photo management. You can come in here, and again, this is searchable as well. Betsy was talking about the ability to search on photos. You can search by caption. You can search by location. So that's handy, and these photos are directly linked back to the surveys that they came from. So that's very useful. We also rename all your photos contextually for you as it relates to the actual project itself. Other things that are handy within this are the suite of exports that you can get your data out as. We have super easy 3-click daily reports, right? So you got your daily monitors out there. Literally, they can do their own export of that report, ship it off to their PM, and away it goes to your customer if that's the reporting needs that are needed. Same for weekly and monthly reports. We have something called a narrative summary report. So this is an example of that. The narrative summary, Elizabeth, I think you were using the narrative summary. I can't remember if we set you up with that.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, so what happens that is over a time period, you can tag particular questions that you want to query the database for information on. So maybe it's sensitive species. So you want to know if over the last week or the last month were any sensitive species uncovered or discovered on the project site. You can just search for that within the context of this narrative report, and we will deliver back a table to you with that information that you can either use directly in your report, or you can just use that to inform your narrative piece. So this is an example of an output. It's dummy data in here, but it gives you an idea of the kinds of things you can do. Now, if you set up your form correctly, you can actually tap into this really powerful compliance checklist, which will give you all of your measures, and then over the time period you put in, whether you were in compliance or not, and the ability to add notes. And then below that, you'll get integrated photos with their captions and their dates. You can cherry pick which photos you want to include in this report, so that makes it very powerful as well. So that gives you kind of a little insight into that. In addition to that, nesting bird surveys are a really common use case for Wildnote. And one of the nice things, again, using the tagging feature, you can get out just the information that you need. For example, if you have a buffer change that is required, you can tag your form accordingly where you've got all of your top level information, and then just export your buffer information that you're going to hand off to maybe the contractor so that they have awareness of changing that buffer. So there's a lot of flexibility in the tool that way to get out the data that you need from a single source. So that works really well. This is an example of a standard export for nesting bird surveys. Other things that are handy, we also have a powerful KML export. You can use that for issue tracking. We just released an update to the KML. I don't know if there's any listeners on who currently use WildNote besides our panelists, but the KML update is really powerful. We allow you to essentially label the KML export as you want. So for both dropped points and photos, you can create your own labels that are pulled from the actual survey itself. And then when you click in to either drop points or photos and you get the extra little box of data, you can choose what data is displayed there. So very powerful in terms of, for example, you could export a KML with the named nests that are on the project site, for example. We also have an Excel pivot report that's very handy when you're trying to look at things. You can also tag that. So if you just want to pull out compliance issues, you could just export that information. One of the other features that people use really commonly, and let me pull up my phone so you can see what that looks like. So this is the interface for mobile. And a real common feature that I see on compliance projects is duplicating the previous day's survey. A pattern that I see, and feel free to chime in anybody else, but a pattern that I see is that the monitors are often not the same person day to day, but they need access to the previous day or the previous week's information. And so that's very easy in a system like ours. And you can duplicate the previous day's survey and then just modify to suit for that current day. So that's very handy. So on that, and that happens right here. So you just slide left on here, and then this is the duplicate button, and that'll make an exact copy with the exception of the photos. It'll make an exact copy of that, and then you can move forward. So that's a time saver for people for sure. The other thing within the system is being able to enter in default information, default answers, so that the people in the field don't have to keep typing things over and over again. I know, Betsy, that you do a lot of that for your team. I think that's been one of the things that's been pretty appreciated, is not having to do that over and over again.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, so then from an interface on mobile, you just pick which survey you want to fill out, and then you just hit start collecting data. And you can expand sections, collapse sections, and just move through the whole system. And it's quite straightforward and quite easy. I think people take to the system. I'd love to hear from you guys. I heard Elizabeth say earlier that the transition wasn't too hard, that your folks were took to the mobile platform pretty easily. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes. Yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect. It was really easy to use.
Okay. All right. That's good. I'm not making that up then. All right. So this is a little bit of what this looks like. Now, we're not a mapping tool for anybody who's on the call who's wondering about that. We do have some mapping aspects. For example, you can, for nesting bird work, we will track up here in the 3-dot menu. You can go to a map view, and you can see all of your created nests in map view. In fact, you can interact with those. You could go back if you're doing a secondary monitoring event for a nest that you've already identified. You can touch that green pin there, and then from there, you can start a new survey. And so if you're doing a monitoring survey after that, you can just start it right from there. So, and we definitely have people using the tool in exactly this way. Another really nice feature is if you are connected, if you have connectivity, you can view the history. So if this is your third or fourth nest check, you can view the history of the nest and see what's already happened. Again, super useful if it's not the same person going out the next time, so they can see what's already happened with that. So we support dropping points. We don't support lines and polygons. So typically what we'll see is that people will use WildNote in conjunction with a mapping tool like Collector, or Elizabeth, what's the other mapping tool that you guys use? Avenza Map, yeah. So typically it'll be a side-by-side situation. I like that. So that gives a little bit of insight, I think, into the platform, and I'm happy to answer any questions if people have any questions at all.
All right,
other-
thank you, Nancy.
You're
much
very
for
welcome.
doing that demo. Two more things. One is we're scheduling our 2022 Lunch and Learn schedule. So if you have anything you would like us to focus on, please throw it in the chat if you have an idea now, or go ahead and contact us here at WildNote. You can contact Jeff at wildnoteapp.com to give any idea. Our best attended lunch and learns have been from ideas from environmental consultants themselves, because these are the issues you're dealing with. And then also wanted to ask for those who are still on the call, I think this is very helpful. Betsy first, Elizabeth second. How do you work with folks that don't want to collect data digitally? And how have you smoothed that process, or what have you done when faced with that situation?
Well, I'll admit we haven't been faced with that situation, at least for us, because at least when I joined, we had already had basically a digital data collection method going.
Got it.
But we've definitely have people that have struggled with using the technology. So we just take as much time as we need to sort of help guide them through it. Give them as much assistance as they can, answer all their questions. If need be, go out to the field with them multiple times. But we have not had anybody who has straight up refused to use the technology at all.
Elizabeth?
So it's more just assisting others in learning how to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same. We haven't had anyone that has refused to use it or didn't want to use it. I think one of the things that we do is we always have especially a newer person shadow in the field. So introduction into it, and they really get to see how to use it and how it works. And they're the person who's filling it in while the person that's training them is walking around and showing them things, so they get the hands-on experience. And I think the fact that we do that makes it really easy for people to use it if it's their first time. But we haven't had anybody say that they didn't like it or didn't.
The shadowing is a great idea. And we've also heard of another idea, which is if you're in the off season, take previous paper data and let people actually enter it on the mobile device from the comfort of the office, and to get a feel for that if they're reluctant to want to go to that new technology. So, all right, great. So I think that's it for us today. Thank you for joining and sticking around with us, and we'll see you in 2022.
Right on.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Great. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.